Hello, this is Sarah with Melting Star Handmade. In this video, I will show you how to make this Cthulhu plush for yourself. This is a pattern by Choly of Sodasune. I will put her link in my video description. You should check her out because she has lots of patterns ranging from simple free patterns all the way up to more challenging paid patterns. So she's really awesome. You should check her out. I'm also in this video not only going to show you how to sew the body and everything, but I'm also going to show you how to applique the eyes. Since this is one of her older patterns, it does not come with embroidery file, so we are lucky enough to learn how to applique the eyes, and I show you in like an easy way to tailor it to your skills, so it's not a problem. Make sure you gather the materials listed here if you want to make this with me, and you can pause this video if you need to because it did take me about 3 hours total to make this cute Cthulhu plush, and I'm turning it into a little under 15-minute video. So please pause if you need to. You can also request a slowed down version if you comment that you are stuck on a spot. I want to help you out. So please let me know if you need help, or you can just watch my video to see how I made it and enjoy the process. Either way, I hope you enjoy the video, and let's get started. The first step is to print out the pattern pages. This is the last 3 pages of the PDF. Once you have them printed, you'll cut out the pattern pieces around the solid line, not the dotted lines. The dotted lines is where you sew. This is called your seam allowance, so make sure you cut on the solid lines. When you get to the last page of the pattern pages, you don't want to cut out the eyepieces yet, since we will be doing these in applique, so set those aside for now, and finish cutting out the rest of the pattern pieces. This is a simple pattern, so there's only 5 pieces to cut out. Once you have all the pattern pieces cut out, you want to get your selected fabric. Now that I have my fabric, I'm going to start cutting the pieces out, and make sure to pay attention to the direction of the stretch and the nap of the fabric as I cut them out. When 2 or more of the pieces are needed, I fold the fabric over like I do here so that I have a mirroring pair. Choly also lists how many pieces you will need right on each pattern piece, so it's easy to find. You can cut this out in many ways. I chose to use a pin and just cut around the paper pattern. Whatever method works best for you is fine. I also have an air erase marker that I use sometimes. I'm going to finish cutting out the rest of this fabric off camera. Now that I have all my pieces cut out, I'm going to find the face piece so that I can start appliquing the eye details. I chose to use felt in red and black for the eye applique. Black will be the pattern piece marked eyes, and the red will be the one marked inner eyes. Now I need to get my ironing board, my iron, and the iron-on sewable adhesive. While my iron heats up, I'm going to prepare my eyepieces. I start by tracing the eyepieces to the iron-on sewable adhesive. To do this, I put the paper pattern under the adhesive and trace to the paper side of the adhesive using a pen or a pencil. I also like to mark which one is which, so I'll make a note, like if this is for black, I'll put black on it, and it's not going to show up on your final piece, so it's okay if you do this. Make sure to trace both pieces for both colors. Once you have them traced, we can start ironing them to the fabric. First, you want to cut apart the colors. I also like to trim them down a little so I don't waste my fabric. Any adhesive hanging off of your fabric will also make your ironing board sticky, so keep this in mind. Now I'm going to iron this straight to the felt while keeping in mind the color. It is best to use a pressing cloth when you do this so you don't melt the felt. It did melt the cheaper red felt a little bit when I did this, but not too bad. Once both adhesives are ironed on, I'm finally going to cut the little pieces out. To do this, I cut directly on the line I traced. I like to take my time on this so that it's a smooth cut, because this cut will show in the final product. Now I'm going to get the face piece out and iron the pieces to the face. To do this, it's best to use the paper pattern to help with placement. Start by lining up the paper to the top of the fabric piece, then grab the black piece first. Remove the backing and hold it over where it will be, then slide the paper away gently, making sure to keep the eyepiece in place. Now I can iron it down using my pressing cloth. I repeat these steps for the other eye. Once both black pieces are down, I'm going to add the red. I could have used the paper pattern, however, I decided to just eyeball it and put them as centered as I could on the black part of the eye. I tried my best not to move them as I placed the pressing cloth down. I think they turned out looking really good so far. Now it's time to sew them. First, I'm going to switch my thread to black and set my sewing machine to a tight zigzag stitch. I will be doing a satin stitch, however, you can always sew this down using a regular zigzag or a straight stitch, depending on how you like it to look and your skill level. Make sure to slow down around the corners and lift the presser foot to adjust the sewing as needed. I had to do this a lot due to sewing a satin stitch. Now I'm going to do the same with the second eye. Once all my black is sewn down, I'm going to switch my thread to a matching color. I will sew all around the edge of the red just like I did with the black. I'm going to speed this part up even more since it's the same as what I did with the black. After everything is appliqued on, I like to add a bit of fray check to the back to keep it from falling apart as easily. Once that's dry, we can start sewing the pieces together. I start by lining up the head pieces with the leg piece. I place them right sides facing, then clip or pin the side with the tentacles together. I make sure to take care of how the tentacles are placed, making sure I get the dent of the curve and the bump of the curve all clipped together properly so that when I sew it, it doesn't shift on me. If you haven't already, make sure to switch the thread to a matching color, then sew the head and the legs together. This is one of the trickiest parts of the plushie to sew because of the repeating curves. Just make sure to take it slow as you need to. Once the head and legs are sewn, we can move on to sewing the wings. Place both pieces right sides facing and clip or pin them all the way around, leaving the middle of the top open for turning. I ended up using a lot of clips on this, but I really wanted it to not slide as I was sewing it. Once you have it clipped together, you'll sew all the way around but leave the opening at the top for turning. After sewing it, you'll want to trim the seam allowance, especially around the curves, so it lays flat and isn't distorted once you turn it. Just be careful not to snip the thread while you trim this up. Once it's all trimmed, it's time to turn it right side out. I like to use my hemostats, but they are not required. A pointy tool like a chopstick would also work. Make sure to fully push out every detail of the wing so it looks good. Now that it's turned completely, I need to ladder stitch the opening closed. I get some thread from my machine, put it on my hand needle, and tie a knot. I make sure to fully close the opening and tuck in the seam allowance as I go. For those that don't know how to ladder stitch, I did provide a graphic explaining what I'm doing. You can also find videos on YouTube if you need more experience on learning how to ladder stitch. After I tie this off, I can place the wings onto the back piece. I use the placement markings on the paper pattern to know where to put it. I then use the same method of holding the piece above it and pulling the paper away, like I did with the eye applique. Then I used a straight stitch to sew the middle of the wings straight to the right side of the back piece. Once you have the wings sewn to the back, it's time to sew the arms. You should have two mirroring pairs. Lay them right sides facing and pair or clip them together, leaving the top open for turning. I always like to do the arms together, so I clip and sew them at the same time. I usually do this when there's multiple pieces of one thing. Again, when sewing, make sure to leave the very top of the arms open for turning. Once you have them sewn, you'll want to trim the seam allowance around the curve to reduce the bulk after turning. Once you have them trimmed and turned, you can add a little bit of stuffing to the arms. You don't want to add too much stuffing as it will make it really hard to sew them to the body or sew the full body together later. I like to add enough stuffing to smooth out the wrinkles in the fabric, but I like to also keep it really loose in the opening area. That way it will be easy to sew onto the body. Once they are stuffed the way I like, I can add them to the body. I take the body back paper pattern and use the placement guides to show where to put the arms. I then base stitch the arms into place. Now that both arms are basted on, I can attach the front of the body to the back of the body. Using clips or pins, I hold the body front to the body back, making sure the wings and arms are tucked inside. You want to leave an opening above the seam of the face near one of the eyes, so you have a turning hole. This plushie doesn't have any seams that need lining up, so just make sure the legs are placed correctly and you don't have extra fabric on one side before you sew. Once you have it fully clipped together, sew around the whole body, just leaving the small opening near one of the eyes for turning. As you sew, make sure the arms stay sandwiched between the body pieces and the wings aren't in the way. It's also a good idea to keep an eye on your bobbin. Mine just ran out and I made it a good 4 inches before noticing. Now I'm going to refill my bobbin and give my machine a light cleaning. It's a good idea to do this more often when working with fabrics like fleece and especially minky, as they can leave a buildup on the machine. Now that I have finished sewing the body, I am going to trim around any curves of the body and the face, making sure to snip between the face tentacles. While I'm finishing this part, I would like to say, make sure to like and subscribe if you like my videos and would like to see more. Now that he's all trimmed up, it's time to turn it right side out. You can do this easier by pulling one arm at a time out and then the face and legs. Once you have it right side out, use a tool to push the tentacles out. Once he's fully turned and any loose threads are clipped, it's time for stuffing. Add the stuffing of your choice, start in his legs going up to the top of his head. Make sure to stuff his body firmly, but leave the face area around the tentacles very lightly stuffed so they don't stick out too much. I did miss in the instructions that I could have ironed the tentacles flat, but I think it was okay that I accidentally skipped this step. Once he's stuffed to your liking, it's time to ladder stitch the opening closed. When it comes to this part, I do like to go back and forth a few times just to give it extra strength, as I do sell these as toys for people. Now that the final ladder stitch is done, Cthulhu is complete. Overall, this is a simple pattern that came together quickly. I feel like this would be a good pattern for beginners that are ready to start challenging themselves with more curves. I will probably make this guy again because he's pretty cute, but I would like to try making him bigger, like a full pillow size. If you end up making your own Cthulhu using this pattern, I would love to see it. Thank you for watching.